and tell stories. So that's what you wanted. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to start it off. I'm going to tell you about the story of when we met. So I was working at a rental car place in the auto mall.
Huh?
And she was working next door to deli. And it was my first week there at the rental car place. This was 30-something years ago. And I would go into the sandwich shop and get a sandwich for lunch. And so there was a few people in there, and they'd all make different, make my sandwich or whatever. I always got the same sandwich. And so one day she makes my sandwich. And so she says, "All right, thanks, Jeremy." And I said, "Okay." And so I just walked out. All right, and then so Scott, who's here today, he was in there, and he goes, "Why'd you call him Jeremy?" And she goes, "Well, that's his name. It's on his shirt." And he goes, "No, it's not." And I go, and he goes, "His name's Adam." She's like, "What are you talking about?" So he goes, "But he hasn't got his shirts yet, so he's borrowing somebody else's shirt." This is So she comes running out of the deli as I'm getting ready to walk back into the thing. She goes, "Hey!" I turn around, I'm like, "What do you want?" She goes, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Adam." She goes, "Well, why'd you say it was Jeremy?" I said, "I never said it was Jeremy." And she's like, "You're an asshole." So I walked in, ate my sandwich. And that's pretty much how we met. And then we started dating a year later. So, a year later, we go on our first date. And she's now working for the rental car company. So now we're working together. In all actuality, she was my boss. And so I said, "Hey, let's go to the movies," whatever. She goes, "Okay." So, 19, 20 years old, I don't have much money. So I'm like, "All right, so let's go to the drive-ins." She goes, "Okay, cool." So we went and watched the best first date movie ever, which was Natural Born Killers.
Basic love story.
Huh?
Basic love story.
Basic love story. And so we're going through and we're on our way down, and I'm like, "Hey," because we left just after work, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm hungry." She's like, "Me too." I'm like, "All right." So we went through drive-through McDonald's and go watch the movie. And as we're watching the movie, this is September, California, whatever, and it starts to rain a little bit. And I'm like, "Oh crap." She goes, "What?" And I go, "My wipers aren't on my car." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I just got it painted." Scott had just painted my car. And I said, "I hadn't put the wipers on yet." And she goes, "Oh shit." So we're driving back down Sunrise, and it really starts coming down. And I have no wipers, so I tell her, I said, "Hey, lean out the window and do one of these." And she's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can't see." I'm like trying to wipe my side. I'm like trying to wipe. She's like, "Oh, jeez." So, yeah, so if you want to have a marriage that lasts 30 years, that's what you need to do. Apparently, because apparently it worked for us. So yeah, so that's kind of how we met, and that was our first date. So here we are. You want to? Okay. So basically, that's why I kind of put on there as interactive. So I'd like to hear people because I'd like to hear about Gretchen through other people. You don't have to come up here and talk if you just want to talk from where you're at and let everybody look at you like you're looking at me. That's cool. I did tell Gretchen I was going to treat this like open mic night. She said I better get new material. But yeah, we had we talked about kind of what she wanted while she was, because I don't know if everybody knows. I brought her, we had to bring her home from the hospital on hospice. So we had time to kind of talk, and that's when I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. She's like, okay. So so we had plenty of time to kind of talk and kind of say what we needed to. So I think you have a story you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said,
I'm not as eloquent as you. I had to write it down. I'm not as loud as you either.
yeah. Open mic night?
Seriously? I don't know how I follow that, but I guess we'll see. Can you guys hear me? Everything good? Okay. First of all, I just want to say, like what Adam said. I know. Thank you, everyone, for being here to celebrate Gretchen's beautiful life and show your love for her. I want to say a couple things before I go into the stories about Sis. First of all, I want to thank Adam Sr. and Adam Jr. both, because the way you guys took care of her and the way you loved her and were there for her in any difficult physical times and the hardest of mental times. I'm beyond grateful to you both. You made a lot of sleepless nights a little more bearable. And she never, ever, ever doubted your love for her. You two are absolutely amazing, and we want to make sure you know that. Secondly, I just want to say, if you don't get the humor in this, you will at the end. I don't want to see any of your faces at this park again for another 50 years. That's the rule. Don't invite us to a soccer game. Don't invite us to watch your kids. We're not coming. It's a hard pass from the Wilsons.
This is the third time.
Oh, I will. But enough about that. There's so many stories I could share about Gretch. Happy ones, dramatic ones, hilarious ones, even the inappropriate ones, but we'll let her take those with her. If she loved you, you knew it. Her love language was loving on people any which way she could. Sometimes it meant showing up. Sometimes it meant door dashing your kids some breakfast. Sometimes it was just clearly my kids. Sometimes it was just a long phone call. Whatever it was, you knew she loved you. If you ever get the opportunity to take a trip as an adult with your sibling, I highly recommend it. Some small words of wisdom to follow that. Be smarter than Gretchen and I. We're not dumb by any means, but sometimes we get together and sometimes, well, hilarity ensues. A couple years back, we took a trip to Santa Barbara to see a comedian. We were so excited. She picked me up, we hit the road, and I think that we ate our way to Santa Barbara. We stopped for all the snacks, got the best clam chowder ever. Somehow, some way, in our chattiness, we took a longer route. Maybe it was the extended version, I don't really know. But we were living our best life, talking, listening to music, just having a blast, when all of a sudden we both realized we're kind of in the mountains. There's no city lights, no highway signs are few and far between, still a way to go to Santa Barbara. No big deal, right? Well, all of a sudden in the dark on the highway, we're watching the navigation, 40 miles to destination. Gas gauge says 39 miles to empty. So now no one's laughing, nobody's having fun, we're not talking, there's no music, we're just watching.
At the gas station.
We got snacks.
To get the gas.
This is my story. Nobody's laughing now. We're not talking. We're just watching destination arrival versus miles to empty. Destination arrival versus miles to empty. All of a sudden, to add insult to injury, I get a text from Aaron. Because in this day and age, everybody tracks everybody. Are you guys still cool? Kind of looks like you're off-roading. Sure enough, in the text, in my location, he's just sent a picture, and there's my face. Looks like we're cruising through the mountains. Clearly, I ignore him. because I know if he knows our gas light's on, we're in big trouble. So fast forward, we're now seeing city lights, signs showing up, gas station upcoming, etc., etc. 3 miles to destination, 2 miles to empty as we exit the freeway, and I look over, and my poor sister has been holding her breath for God knows how long. And I'm like, sis, you gotta breathe. And she was like, oh yeah, okay, forgot to do that. Pull into the gas station, 0 miles to empty, it says. We're laughing hysterically. I don't know if it's out of nerves, relief, every other emotion imaginable. I don't know. I do it all again for the love and the laughs that we shared. Maybe a tad more attention to the gas gauge and navigation. Maybe make a little better choices. And speaking of making better choices, if you ever do get that opportunity to take that trip with your sibling, do not stay up chatting until 4 o'clock in the morning, knowing that you have to be on the road at 9 and drive home 6 hours. That ride was interesting in itself. Gretchen wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend. It was nothing for us to FaceTime 2 to 3 times a day, every day. Our nighttime FaceTimes were Aaron and Adam Sr.'s very favorite because we'd always interrupt a movie or a show and we'd say, it'll just be 5 minutes and we won't be loud, we promise. It was never 5 minutes, and being quiet together was never our strong suit. She wasn't only my best friend, but she was one of my fiercest protectors and one of my biggest cheerleaders, and definitely the biggest cheerleader for all of her nieces and nephews. She was the funniest person I'd ever met. We tried to never let each other be too far down, always there with a joke or a smile. But like I said, she was the funny one. 2025 was hard on all of us. We really thought 2026 was going to be better. It turns out losing Sis was the soul-crushing, heart-wrenching season finale of 2025. The hole that she's left in my heart and the piece of me that's missing is just unreal. And I don't know how we figure out how to recover from this, but we do it because we've made it through 100% of bad days and there's no other alternative. A little over 20 years ago, a handful of you same people were here with us at this same park as we said goodbye to our grandma. Less than 6 months ago, I stood in this exact same spot with a lot of familiar faces here as we said farewell to our mom. I stood here holding my sister's hand, thinking this is the hardest thing I'd ever have to do in my adult life. Today I stand here, surrounded by the people she loved and that loved her the most. But she's not here to hold my hand. Saying yet another farewell, because it's never goodbye. It's farewell until we meet again. As we say farewell, let's remember her beautiful life she lived, the way she loved those boys and all of us, and how lucky we were to be a part of her beautiful life, or if we were just sideline participants, and her legacy and the way she loved and showed her beautiful smile. Sissy girl, we love you to the moon and back, forever plus one day, Pooh. We're a whole lot lost without you, but we love you more than you could ever know. Next. Thank you, baby. I was gonna say.
This is all good, actually. Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron. I'm the brother-in-law. And I said the same thing about Paula, but Gretchen and I had one of those kind of sitcom, family relationships where kind of under the breath talk shit about each other all the time. It was all fun and games. And I think it actually started about 30 years ago before we were together. I was taking a truckload of stuff to Turlock to see my aunt, and then I was going down to visit my friend Jeremy, different Jeremy. And so Amy was going to come with me. She's a big 19-year-old and tell her parents I can do whatever I want. And so I show up there to pick her up, and I understood them being afraid about her going to Turlock, but I said, we're going down to LA, and he's standing there, arms crossed. What are you doing with my baby girl? She's not coming, and then out of nowhere, you hear this scream going, "What if he takes you to a crack house in LA?" And by the way, this is Jeremy back here, who's my race man. My best friend of I don't know how many years. And if you know Jeremy, it's extremely funny. Another thing about Gretchen is, at least like as she got a little older, she was on songs and trends, and she didn't watch TikTok. She watched those videos on Facebook. Or she'd say, "Hey, have you heard this new song?" I was like, "Well, the one from 3 years ago, yeah." Well, going back to MySpace, she was so proud that she figured it out. And they started having messaging on there, and one day she pops up, I see a message from her, and she's like, "Hey, look what I can do," and we're going back and forth, and then she's like, "Oh, BRB," and I was like, "All right," and it's like the early days of all those abbreviations, and I was like, "I don't know what that means," and then she comes back, she's all, "Do you know what that means?" It means "be right back, be right back," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't know that," and she was so excited, she got something over on me, so I was pretty good with pop culture stuff usually. And I wish I could have another BRB from her. I can't do too much more of this. I just want to say thanks for everybody for loving this whole family. I'm so glad everyone's here for today. But please don't forget about these guys in a week, in a month, in 6 months, and 3 years, because it's not just about today. They lost the most important thing in their life, and it's amazing to have each other, and they're going to be amazing support, and we'll be all there, but it's so easy to text now. Just check in on them. It's important, it's needed, because that doesn't always happen after situations like this. Thank you, everybody.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul. Okay. Back when Gretchen was 12, I walked into her life and she had her arms crossed like that and said, "Who do you think you're going to be, my dad?" And I said, "Honey, we're going to take her radio away from her mom and I because she was being funny." I told her later in life, I said, "Did you realize 30 years later that I'd be donating kidneys to you? You don't know where life's going to go. And you don't know what life will bring you." But that little girl, one of the things that I always am very proud of is that, we all have babies, we all have that, it's great. But I got to pick my daughter, and she got to pick me. And that was the coolest thing. A friend of mine emailed me and said, "I really feel bad for you because you and Gretchen had a special bond." And we did. We had a bond that she gave me the opportunity to do something good in life. Because I've had, wasn't a really good guy most of the time, but she said, she picked me. I was able to give her a kidney and give her a few more years, and it was the best thing that I've ever done in my life. And I told her sister when I went to go see her on Friday, the day that she passed, I said, if I could give her anything to change right now, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And she and that's one of the things that I really, I loved her so damn much. I mean, seriously, it's just, she's probably meant more to me. She was my daughter. She was my girl. And I just, I have the utmost respect for this man right here. This is what every man should strive to be like. Because he spent 30 years taking care of her. He was there by her side all the time, where most of us guys, and I'm not saying all of us, but most of us probably ran with that much pressure. But he did, he's there. And he's been there. And like I said, I'm very happy I get to call him my son, not son-in-law. And I will make sure, as Aaron said, I will make sure that I'm check on these guys. There's this little guy over here, little, let's call him. But, I really, like I said, I appreciate everybody being here, and I know that she'd be really happy to see everybody here because she was a giver. She was not a receiver. And I watched her take care of people. If there was somebody who was starving, she'd make them food. She always made everybody food. That's why I was like this most of the time. But we could tell lots of stories, and I'll tell one that it's always relating to the car. My brother and I always talked about it. She always had a picture on her dash, front of the speedometer and everything. And she took one day and bulb will burn up. And we asked her, did you not see the lights on the dash and everything? No, didn't see the lights on the dash. Well, I took that picture, and you know the little hot thing on there? You look at the back of the picture and it's burnt. That's why she didn't see it. So now when kids come to the shop and we see them, I see that, I said, you might want to take those off. But, yeah, I just, like I said, she was a fantastic person. And, you know, I told her when, you know, and then we always talk about one other thing. Gretchen used to ride with her leg out the window. Her mom kept telling her, you know, one of these days you're going to hit so hard it's going to split you in half. And I think she started doing the other side while you drove.
Yes.
Yeah. But,
Can even it out.
and the other time when she called me to go bail her out because her car, her little Dodge Colt, had broke down on Melody Lane over there. Paul, you got to come over and check. You got to check this out. Check this out. And so I went over there and I said, "You out of gas?" "Oh no, I can't be out of gas." She said, "I put $5 in the other day, and I've gone like 300 miles." I said, could be the problem there. We're not sure. But one other thing I want to share, and I'll get off because people, my brother will tell you my initials are MAT. Michael's always talking, so I will stop on that. But how I got the name Pause, and I wanted to share this, is when I was with Amy and Gretchen, I did not want to be called stepdad. I think stepdad is just, I don't know, it's just bad juju to me. And so we were doing Easter egg coloring kits. And the Easter egg coloring kits is PAAF. So they called me Pause. Until this one came along and he said, that's too long. We're going to shorten it. We're going to make it Paul. Okay. Abby and Anchor always wanted to go to Paul in Shelly's house to swim. So Abby made it longer, made it Paul instead of Paul. So they did finally talk her into it's Paul. Anyway, gonna miss her. Everybody's gonna miss her. She was definitely a bright spot in many lives, and she was a mentor. And she was.
She disagrees.
She's here. She's here. Yeah, I told you guys. Anyway, thanks to everyone. I appreciate it.
The other dad.
For you that don't know me, I'm Gretchen's father. She was my first ward.
Closer.
Closer.
There you go.
Closer. She was the one that taught me how to be a dad. She was the one I worried over. She was the one I had joys with. She was the one that was my best friend for most of her life. Funny stories. Okay, I got a couple. Gretchen hated naps. So she would think, yeah, really. She would think of any excuse on the planet not to take a nap. So I put her in a crib one day, just after she'd been potty trained. She was about 3, I guess. She's in there about 5 minutes, and I hear, "Daddy, I have to go poo-poo." And I said, "Oh, Gretchen, knock it off." I said, "You're just stalling." So I let it go, and about 10 minutes later, I still hear her in there playing in her crib. And I went, "What the hell?" So I walked in there, and she's got poop from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. And every spot on that crib was covered in poop. So her mom had to pull her out, douche her off with a hose. I took the crib apart, took it out. That's just one of the funny stories in Gretchen's life. Too many to mention. But as years gone by, we were best friends. We took trips to Marriott's together because unfortunately her mom and I were on the outs. We took trips to Disneyland together. We took trips up to our Uncle Buddy's house, spent weeks up there and enjoyed time together. And as she grew, especially in those teenage years, being her father's daughter, to say we locked horns a few times, probably a statement of falsehood. She, like I said, she was her dad's daughter, so she wouldn't budging in. So it caused some rifts between us for a while. One night I get a phone call. And she goes, "Dad, I'm tired of being ornery. We got to get back together." I said, "That's fine." She goes, "I met a guy today." I said, "Really?" He goes, yeah, his name is Adam. I kind of want you to meet him. I said, all right. So let me know when and where. Well, again, we locked horns on something, so that didn't happen. But I thank Adam for being in her life all the time, taking care of her, and being there. Michael, wherever you are, I thank you for giving her that kid. It's something I couldn't do because of health reasons. But she was just the love of my life, always will be, always has been. And thank you again for taking care of her during her time of need. I'll end this as easily as I can. The worst statement on parents should never outlive their child. Thank you.
Gretchen touched, and I can say Gretchen and I met her when she worked at Bear River School and our FRC, where I spent most of my days hanging out with Gretchen. She was the most genuine, kind, giving person I've ever met in my life, and every break I had, I found myself just drawn to that room to hang out with her more. One day, she asked me to come over and have dinner. And from that one night, it became a weekly ritual. And every week, I think it was spaghetti the first time. But every week we would get together, and I was not married at the time, and Adam and Gretchen had decided that they needed to introduce me to somebody. They didn't know who that somebody would be, and it became different people every time. I don't know. Luckily, I met my amazing wife, and that became less of a conversation piece. But those weekly dinners continued. And for years, Gretchen and Adam would come to our house for dinner, or we would go to their house for dinner. And when they moved to Hawaii, we would have dinner on Zoom so that we could stay in contact with each other. Fun story. Kind of describes Gretchen for us. We had decided 14 years ago or so now on spring break that we were going to go to Monterey and spend a weekend in Monterey. We made it down there.
That just came up on Facebook the other
Yeah,
day.
so it was right around this time. We get down there, we're enjoying our time in Monterey, and I think I had been talking about Grand Canyon and how I'd been there before, and everybody decided, hey, why don't we just drive to the Grand Canyon right now? And this is the life. Gretchen was just this way, right? So we jumped in our cars and we stayed the first night in Vegas, and it was the first time AJ had been to Vegas. All of us, yeah. I mean, it was the big thing. And then on to the Grand Canyon the next morning. Along the way, AJ was mad at me because I didn't stop for lunch quick enough. And we finally made it to the Grand Canyon. When we get there, the roads are closed for construction. We got one view of the Grand Canyon from the parking lot, and then we turned around and drove back home. And I got to hear all the way back from everybody how I should have known that the Grand Canyon was closed and that this was my responsibility. Gretchen was always there for me. At my lowest point in life, I still remember, I called her up and I said, Gretchen, I messed up. And Gretchen was there and said, you know what you need to do, Goose? Do it. And I did. And she was there every time I needed her. She supported me. She loved me. And I'm so grateful that I had her as a person in my life. I can tell you that she is the most genuine person that I've ever met. She didn't care what anybody thought. She lived her best life. And I hope that I can get to that point where I stop worrying so much about what everybody thinks of me, because she was so good that everybody just loved her.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Joanne Weston. I've known Gretchen through my kids because they went to school with her. I have two stories, and the rain is starting. One is that I have a nephew in Michigan that he was on donor. He was waiting for double lung transplant, and Gretchen was his biggest cheerleader. She talked to him frequently on the computer, and they talked other times, and I know that Gretchen always wanted to go to Michigan to visit, and Scott has said that he can't be here today. So, and he's 8 years with his lungs, and she was still cheering him on, so she's a great cheerleader. The other story goes back to about 1991, 92, and our son and his friends moved out for the first time, and they rented a house. And there was 5 guys living in the house, I think. But there was no refrigerator. They were using an ice chest. And then one day, somebody said, well, we know a guy in Del Paso Heights that sells used refrigerators. So they went down there and got a refrigerator and brought it back, plugged it in, didn't work. So they took it back to the guy in Del Paso Heights, and he exchanged it. He says, I normally don't do this, but they were persuasive. And so they got another refrigerator and took it to the house and plugged it in, and it worked for one day. And then Gretchen says, I'm going with you to turn this refrigerator. So they went back, got another refrigerator, and that one actually worked. But the next day, the owner of the store was found floating in the Sacramento River. And we said, boy, Gretchen, you really take care of things.
I think there's a statute of limitations on that. I think we're good.
I'm not gonna need the mic for this. You guys know who I am. You know I'm loud. So, I'm just gonna go right off the bat and say it. Losing my mom at this young of an age is something I never thought I'd have to experience. I've had nightmares about this for years. I've had recurring thoughts that just one day I'm gonna wake up and she's not there. Never in my life did I think it would happen so soon. My mom was the person who I could talk to at any point in my life, at any time of the day, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd be like, are you up? And she'd be like, yes, I am. Good, I need to talk to you about something. She was, without a doubt, my person who I could talk to about anything, and she would never judge me at all. One story that I have that just makes me smile to this day and age. I remember this so well, and it's actually a bit more of a recent story from, I think it was just a couple months ago. Mom she was still in some pain and everything, but she could still walk at times. Her feet were hurting, but she said, because you were doing so good with taking care of me, I want to do something for you, so I want to make a yes day. What she said is that basically I could basically say we could do anything that I wanted that day, and we do it. It could be like if I wanted to go out somewhere, if I wanted to just sit around and just do whatever I want to do, anything. So I said, to start, I want to go to breakfast. So we drove out to Carmichael, and we went to the Hungry Hollow. The all-time favorite place that me and her would go to for breakfast. After that, Dad was with us during that day and everything, and then she asked, where do you want to go next? And Dad said, what was it you said? You said like, oh, just wait, he's gonna pick like a card shop or GameStop or something. Boy, did I ever twist his head. I made a shock out of him and said, I want to go to the Target over on Douglas, over in Roseville. And Mom and Dad just looked at each other like, whoa. So we went there. We went there, did a little shopping and everything, and they actually found a lot of stuff they wanted to get for the house there. And next thing I know, Mom says, as we're leaving, I've got enough in me for like maybe one more trip before we go back home. Where do you want to go? I said, I want to go off on a bang and go somewhere you like to go to. And so I said, let's go to Hobby Lobby. That was her favorite place to go if she ever wanted something kind of like knick-knack-ish or something new to put up in the house. We went there, walked around for a while. I found some good model kits and everything. She found like some little signs and everything. We bought that stuff, and next thing I know, we're coming home. And she said, how was your yes day? And I said, my yes day has been amazing. Thank you so much for that. I know that everyone here is going to be giving me a lot of, me and my dad, you're going to be giving us a lot of support and everything through all of this. And I just want to say thank you everybody for coming for this. And I know that it's not an ending. This is a beginning. And I know that Mom is right now, that's probably what all this rain is. It's her crying down on all of this, saying how happy she is that we're all here for this.
You're the thunder.
Yeah, the FOMO. She's got FOMO, exactly. So I just want to say thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for just having the courage to be here and for just supporting us. Thank you all so much. Mom, I love you, and here's until I talk to you again.
Love you, Ethan.